grow their ventures, and scale up in terms of various business activities. So we have collaborated with 5 Atal incubation centers across 3 states. And what we are doing is that we are curating a list of investors from across India who will be able to interact with the incubatees of these five incubators on those 3 days. We will be organizing one-on-one meetings on a virtual platform so that every startup gets a chance to pitch his venture to multiple investors. So before we move on to the actual funding event, what we wanted to do was we wanted to have an expert with us who could talk about the do's and don'ts of pitching for startups. So this is kind of like a orientation, a prelude to the actual funding quest, which will happen in March. So I would like to introduce the speaker over here. Uh, we have invited Mr. Avelo Roy, who is the managing director of Kolkata Ventures. He's also the director of ECC Engineering Private Limited and is on the board of advisors for Amity University and Comedy Munch. He is a former startup advisor for Prime Minister of Nepal as well. Avelo has been a guest lecturer at Illinois Institute of Technology, Northwestern University, and multiple IITs. So he has had multiple speaking engagements in US and India, including White House panel for entrepreneurship education, Startup America, Invest India as well. He has had many awards in India, US, Canada, and China. He has attended more than 1,800 startup meetups in those countries. And he is basically a serial tech entrepreneur. He's an investor and also a TV host. He has started his first startup at the age of 19 around his patent pending technology while still studying as a computer engineer at the Illinois Institute of Technology. He built it to a multi-million dollar valuation by the age of 22. He has built 8 businesses in US and India with multi-million dollars worth of products and services ranging from consumer electronics, artificial intelligence, healthcare process automation, food science, wireless communications, wearable technology, and graphical password applications. So that's a huge array of different industries that he has worked across. And as the great great grandson of Sarojini Naidu, Avelo continues the legacy forward by tirelessly serving the Indian youth through entrepreneurship education using lean startup methodology and principles of Bhagavad Gita. His efforts through Kolkata Ventures in the past 3 years have resulted in 400 plus revenue generating startups responsible for around 4,500 new jobs created in 10 states of East India. So Kolkata Ventures is one of the largest startup incubation centers in East India. And Avelo's management style is derived from the principles of Bhagavad Gita, and he's an influential youth icon with a monthly reach of 2 lakh youths over social media. So that being said, I would want the speaker to join in the next couple of minutes and take us through the do's and don'ts of pitching for startups so that they are well equipped to uh, meet the Arthayan funding quest with all their zest and energy. uh,
Thank you very much for the very kind introduction. Um, should I get started?
yes, definitely.
Okay. I'll just quickly share my screen. Just give me a second.
uh, are you having trouble sharing the screen? Is there
Just
a...
give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm almost there.
Oh, okay.
Um, sorry, it's a Mac, so there's always like some nuances. Just give me a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So as I was introduced, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. A little bit about myself. Since the age of 19, won many business plan competitions in US and Canada, and that's how we got our first seed funding. And there onwards, honored by California State Senate and Legislature. Built multiple businesses in US, Canada, and India. Kolkata Ventures being my first business in India, and it has been very, very satisfying to have made so many revenue generating startups from Kolkata Ventures. And this lockdown, we were able to expand to 5 countries as a result of being completely virtual and the geographical barriers not being a factor at all. Some really amazing people. We only focus on entrepreneurs, helping entrepreneurs who have made $1 million or above. Only those entrepreneurs are allowed to help our next generation of entrepreneurs. Some of our startups that are making more than 5 lakhs a month, these are already funded. I also teach at IITs and IIMs and 2 US universities, 4 TED Talks, some news media coverage. So you know that I'm speaking from my experience and not just book knowledge. So let's come down to defining from a scientific perspective. So what I'm going to speak today, it will deal a lot with lean startup methodology, which is a science of startups, which is basically after researching 10,000 successful startups that became a business. It has been compiled into a scientific way of building a startup. So according to that, the definition of a startup is it's a temporary organization designed to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. So as we're building a startup, it's important that we focus on building something that can be repeated across geographies, repeated, in a system kind of way, just like an experiment can be repeated in various labs under the right environments, and it repeats itself. Similarly, a startup, the business model, we are searching for a business model that can repeat itself and scale nationally, globally, etc. So that's the focus as we are building it. So I'm focusing on the to-dos, and as I'm going through them, I'll talk about what not to do. Um, so what's a business model, right? A business model describes all parts of the company necessary to make money. What does that mean? That means your hard work, your time, your money goes in, right? Value creation happens and revenue comes out. So if the revenue is more than the cost, right, you're profitable. It's lower, you're in losses. So this whole process, your effort goes in, value creation happens, revenue comes out. This whole thing is called business model. So uh, uh, when you're looking at from investor's perspective, an investor is looking at it from multiple angles at the revenue model, at how your business functions, and based on the strengths and weaknesses, the decisions are made. So I'll kind of going to delve into not too much details, but what it entails, a business model. So first, it starts with customer segment. One of the definitely not to dos in a pitch, in an investor pitch, is to tell anybody who has a phone or internet user is my customer. Or basically, when you sound you're everything for everyone, you're nothing for no one. So be a specialist, don't be a generalist. Be something for someone, very specifically, be narrow, be niche, right? So when you're focused, you can accomplish a lot with limited resources. When you're diverted, when you try to do a lot of things with limited resources, you will do average or you will do below average performance in a lot of things. And that means you will not make any impact. That means you will die. You're wasting your time. So 1 centimeter wide, 1 kilometer deep. That's the process, right? Focus, narrow, niche, be the king of your niche, and then slowly expand. Just like Amazon started with books only, and then they went from A to Z, everything, right? Now they sell even vegetables, groceries, everything. But they started with only books and they focused on that. Same with many companies, if you look at it, started with one thing, focused on it, build the brand, reputation, trust around it. Once you get the trust, if people trust you with A, they'll trust you with A, B, and C, right? A first customer, somebody who's paid you for something, is 60 times likely to pay you for something else versus a brand new lead who doesn't know you, doesn't trust you. It's harder to convert somebody new versus taking somebody who's a first timer and making them spend, upsell, cross sell, etc. So it's called lifetime value of a customer. A lot of investors will ask you this question in your pitch: what is the lifetime value of your customer? And you need to give a very solid answer based on proper assumptions. That means, over a 5-year period, my customer will stick with me. They will buy XYZ, right? Worth blah, blah, and blah. And accordingly, your lifetime of your customer is defined. Now, based on that, the next question the investor is going to ask you is, what is your customer acquisition cost? Right? So if your lifetime value of your customer is 1,000 rupees and your customer acquisition cost is 700 rupees, it's not a very promising business. But if your customer acquisition cost is 150 rupees and your lifetime value of your customer is 1,000 rupees, then it sounds like, there is some potential here. So and they will ask you follow-up questions. What is it based on? How are you acquiring your customer? How are you expanding the lifetime value of your customer, etc.? So knowing your customer is the first and foremost thing that you need to know your segment. So for example, a good answer to your customer is, my customer is 25 to 35 young urban professionals who have a monthly income of 80,000 rupees or more. They're unmarried. They like to spend 50% on food, 30% on rent, and so much so knowing as much as possible. Now, how do you get that data? You get that from census data. You get that from market research data from marketresearch.com or Nielsen, right? You get that from Informatica. Some of the things you can get from Google, right? So the point is, there's a lot of different areas where you can gather market research data from. And sometimes you have to connect the dots, right? If there's so many people in this area and so many of them are making so much money, then my market size is this many people multiplied by this much buying power. So 80,000 rupees per month, let's say, buying power multiplied by 20,000 people in that group, that's the buying power. So, you have to, and these are the things that go on your pitch deck. So a lot of, and you have to source the data. You have to mention the data where you're getting it from. This makes you look authentic. One of the definitely to-dos about an investor pitch is facts and figures, right? Am I clear so far? Is English okay, or you prefer Hindi, Hinglish? Is my language all right? I just wanted to pause and ask.
Yeah, fine with us, sir.
Okay, English is okay? All right.
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. Okay. The next part is value proposition. What does that mean? That basically means you have a product. Now, most people will talk about how awesome is their product. How many megapixel camera. Let's say for a phone, you might say so many megapixel camera, such a powerful processor, this, that. But as a customer, that's not what customer cares about. They care about, how can you take care of my needs? That means, are you fast? Are you cheap? Are you going to save me time? Are you going to save me money? Are you going to connect me with other people? That's what the value is. The value is not necessarily the number of megapixels. The value is not necessarily, the battery power and whatnot. The value is how much time you're going to save me, how much value you're going to give me, how much entertainment are you going to give me, and things like that. So from an investor's perspective, it's nice to brag, but brag in a way that shows how you're adding value to your customer, right? So that's very, very important. So next thing is channels, distribution channels. So your products and services need to reach your customer, right? How do they reach your customer? Is it online? Is it offline? Is it through WhatsApp? Is it through sales channels? Is it through telecalling? How are you delivering? You have to figure that out. How are you taking care of your customers? Is it through chatbots? Is it through, again, call centers? Is it, automated? Is it a combination of all of these things? What's your customer relationship? What's your revenue stream? Where are you getting your money from? It's good to have multiple revenue streams. It's good to have recurring revenue streams. So that's a very strong business model when you have a customer paying you on a monthly basis or a yearly basis. Uh, that's very attractive to an investor because there is a revenue stream that you can depend on because it's recurring, right? So it's nice to have that. And based on the revenues, also you can back calculate and figure out what all resources you need to reach that revenue. And on the revenue streams wise, accordingly, you can decide what kind of people you need, what kind of technology you need, what kind of marketing you need to reach those revenue stream goals per month. So very important because a lot of times people think startups are about fundraising. Unfortunately, that's not true. Startups are about I'm sorry I'm having to even say this, but startups about generating revenue. And when you generate revenue, you show traction, investors will knock on your door. But without that, you're basically standing with a begging bowl and hoping somebody invests in your idea. That's not very good. So key resources, that's your key employees, your engineers, your management team, your board of advisors, your relationships that you have with organizations and things like that. So that basically means something that you have that others don't have that make you have a competitive advantage, right? So for example, when Facebook and Google, at least 5 6 years ago, they were competing a lot. They were buying companies left, right, and center in Silicon Valley, and it was purely based on the number of engineers they had, and the valuation was based on $1 million per engineer, because all these small startups, they had very dedicated, loyal engineers. And Facebook was, it's called acqui-hire. You acquire to hire those engineers because those engineers won't come. They want that entrepreneurial lifestyle and have that freedom. So Facebook's like, okay, you can be in our company, have that entrepreneurial lifestyle, but work for us, right? And you won't come on your own, so let me come buy the company so I get all of you. There's not much time required to hire and go through headhunters and things like that. So your key resources are your people that you have, and that makes all the difference. Average idea with amazing people, success. Amazing idea with average people, failure. Almost guaranteed, right? So people make all the difference because people are dynamic. They can improvise on an average idea, build, test, learn, and turn that around to something wonderful. But if the people are not intelligent, even a good idea, they will take it around and throw it into garbage. So very important that you hire the right people. It takes time, it takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of persistence, but it's worth it, hiring the right people. Key activities. What is it that you do? Do you design? Do you develop? Do you manufacture? Do you consult? What are your key activities for your business? Strategic partnerships. This tremendously adds to your valuation when you're pitching to investors and you say, I have a strategic partnership with Samsung, or I have a strategic partnership with Paytm, right? And they'll be like, whoa, what kind of strategic partnership? So it's like, hey, they're giving us access to their data and we're giving them access to our customers, or they're giving us access to visibility because they have 400 million wallets, and we are giving access to our technology, which is brand new and patented, etc. Whatever that might be. There is a. Have you seen those? Discovery Channel, those big sharks and the whales they go by, and the small fish also go along with them, and they don't get attacked by other fish because the whale or the shark, they're so big, they're the big brother. So similarly, small startups partner up with big companies and they get that shelter and they grow rapidly. I'll also give you another visual analogy. In India, you'll see cycles or rickshaws holding onto a truck and going up the bridge. The truck is going at 40 kilometers per hour, and so is a cycle or rickshaw going up at that speed. Although they on their own couldn't pedal so hard, but holding onto a truck allows them to do that. That's called strategic partnership. And when a startup does that with a larger company, it can grow rapidly and it can attract investors and it can do wonderful things. So it's absolutely worth it. If you see that your growth helps somebody else grow, tie up with them, potentially get invested by them, and grow with their help. That's very, very powerful, and it adds to your valuation like anything. Another thing that adds to your valuation is intellectual property protection. That means patents. trademarks, etc. So trademarks, not so much unless you're a known brand or you have a huge social media following. But patents, definitely. If you have filed for patent and you have a technology that's unique or a method that's unique or a design that's unique, you can get patented, and that increases your valuation tremendously. And talking about it to investors also helps with your credibility, because they're like, wow, these guys are serious. They're not just coming up with the idea. They've actually patented it. They have something unique. They're worth investing in. All right. And lastly, your cost structure, right? Now, it's very important that in your business model, you share what is your cost structure. And generally, it's not a good idea to seem operationally expensive, because if you're having a fancy office and a fancy this and a fancy that, investors looking at your cost and they're like, you know what? They're spending all the money in things that don't matter. Where investors like to see their money is tech, in uh, growth. That means marketing, sales, right? Hiring quality people, etc. Where it directly adds to the growth of the company versus just operational costs. Is not the best idea. So make sure when you show allocation of funds, there's going to be a financial slide where you have to show allocation of funds. Make sure that you showcase your marketing, your operations, and your technology, your product development, right? Product development and marketing should have a majority share as opposed to operations. Now, if you're a manufacturing company, then operationally you're intensive. You will have to show a lot of more operations, but then go for investors who understand that business, right? Don't go for investors who invest in virtual or tech or digital businesses, because operationally intensive businesses are also profitable, but not everybody understands them too well. And if your investor does not understand your business, they will not value you as well, and they will keep micromanaging you and criticizing you, and that doesn't help with your motivation or with your business growth. So far, everybody with me? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Let me continue with the screen sharing. Now, your first slide on your pitch deck is a problem statement. What is a problem that you're solving? And this is the time when you capture the interest of your investor or lose it. This is the trailer to your movie, right? So I like the Vedic definition of problem. It says a problem is something that no one wants, but everyone has to face it and no one can avoid it. Just like death, disease, old age. So you see all these pharmaceutical companies, healthcare companies, they're making so much money because they are dealing with problems that no one wants. Everyone has to face it and no one can avoid it. To showcase a first slide of Airbnb pitch deck where they raised their first $500,000, you can see it's 35 words, very straight to the point, 3 very abstract problems. They're not talking about the solution, it's a problem slide. And that gets you excited, like, okay, how are you going to solve it? And that's how they bring you into the next slide and the next slide. So make sure your problem statement is 30 to 35 words, no more than that, right? And your solution slide, again, people blabber a lot. I'm this and that and this and that. Do not confuse your investors, right? Do not confuse investors. And the best way to not confuse your investors is to follow this formula. Your company helps blah, that means your market, to blah, that means you're solving a problem, by blah, which is a method or some tool, right? If you follow this, you're good. I'm giving you very short because I don't have much time. So I'm just quickly going through this. And as you go through your startup, you will constantly build, test, learn. So a lot of times what will happen is you will meet an investor twice or thrice. And that probably would be in a period of like 3-4 months or 6 months in between. And it's a very common practice for investors to ask what has changed in the last 3 months or the last 6 months. I remember many pitch, this year I have probably done like 30 or so judging of pitches, startup pitches. more than 30, I think. And in almost all of them, if there is a known startup by one investor, that one investor tells all the other investors, hey, I know these guys. I heard them last year, or I heard them 6 months back, and they said blah, blah, and blah. Let's see anything has changed. And every investor would be like, okay, you ask the questions, and let's see if they have shown some progress. And that's how you get to see that if they're repeating the same thing or they're actually progressing. So it's very important that you build, you test, you learn, you come up with new insights. And every presentation, every pitch that you're pitching, you might be surprised that you might see some familiar faces who have heard you before, and they want to hear something new, some growth, something, some progress that you have made so far. Your customer acquisition cost goes down when your customers start bragging about your product, right? So unique selling proposition is something investors definitely want to hear. How are you different from 10 other companies that have pitched to me in the last week? Yes, they want to hear that. But unique bragging proposition is even better, where your customers are bragging about how wonderful is your product and getting other customers as referrals to come on board. And if you can show referrals, that's a huge positive point in your pitch deck, because then investors are like, you're creating value, because that's why your customers are referring other customers and your cost of customer acquisition is going down. So testimonials also help on your pitch deck when you have testimonials from your customers talking about how they like it. Another thing that helps is a lot of tech-focused investors who are really smart are going to ask to show your Google Analytics and your Google, if you have an app, then it's going to be Google App Console. Now, they might not always ask you to show it, but they're going to ask you some questions that are going to address the same problem. That means how many daily active users, how many monthly active users, how many weekly active users. That means active user means somebody who has come to your website or app at least once a week, or once a day, or once a month, right? And another question is, what's your customer retention? That means you can see on Google Analytics and Google App Console that, especially App Console, that people have downloaded the app and in 7 days they uninstalled it, or 10,000 downloads, 9,500 uninstalls. Terrible, right? And that's what the investor wants to know. That what's the reality? You're telling me I have 10,000 downloads, but how many of them are still your active users? And accordingly, they judge the stickiness of your product. Is the customers really sticking to your product, or you just are telling me stories, but nobody gives a damn, and your customers are not loyal to you? So your unique bragging proposition is built out of all of those numbers, as well as testimonials, where you can showcase that, so many referrals, so many active users, so many people bragging about our product. Build a scalable business model. So one of the things that investors look for is, are you scalable, or are you just going to grow in your state and that's it? You can't grow beyond that. The network effect. Are there people referring? Is there a growth that's exponential versus linear, right? Have you put your skin in the game? A lot of times what happens is people go to investors with, I am not going to put in a single dollar. I have an idea. You invest the whole thing. And that's a terrible idea, right? They should want to see you have skin in the game. That means you have somehow or other put some of your savings money, or friends, family, fools, somehow, or crowdfunding, or somehow you have put in some money where you have a lot to lose, whether it's reputation or money, right? And that's when investors like, okay, you believe in it enough that you have put your heart and soul into it. That makes me want to believe in it. Otherwise, it's like investor has everything to lose and you have everything to gain, right? It's unfair when investor is investing 100% of the amount and you are just building it up. And if you fail, investor gets zero. In fact, investor loses that entire investment. You lose nothing. You get experience, you get learning. So that's a very unequitable or unfair way of dealing with investors. So investors want to see your skin in the game. What have you put in, right? And so if you have come this far with your own effort, with your own money, with your own thing, then investor wants to say, okay, with my effort, this guy can go this far, right? But you have to show some traction from your end that you are putting in the effort that is required. Again, investors looking for your validated skill and will. So a team slide on the pitch deck generally is a very important slide. And generally what I see, people put a big picture of their team or themselves, and a big text of their name, which means nothing unless you're Amitabh Bachchan or Shah Rukh Khan or Virat Kohli. It doesn't matter what your name is. What matters is what have you done. So it's important that you reduce all of those and show what you've done. That in your past, okay, working in X sector for 5 years with so many clients, so much experience, or built an app with 70,000 active users. And so that showcases to the investor that, oh, these guys have huge credential. So they have done something in the past, so they can repeat it again. And so this startup is highly likely to succeed because they are not newbies who are going to learn with my money. They're going to activate my money and grow my money, because the investor only wants one thing, and that is my money should grow. My money should grow. That's it. That's what an investor wants. And for that, your business has to grow. So can you grow your business and grow my money along with it? That's what investors looking for. And exit is what they're looking for. Exit strategy. How am I going to get my money back? Are you going to be bought out by a company? Are you going to go IPO, which most likely won't happen? Are you going to be acqui-hired? Are you, as a big investor, going to buy me out? A venture capitalist to come put in 50 crores and buy small investors out. How am I getting my exit? You need to have that answer. A lot of times entrepreneurs don't know that answer, but look at companies that are similar to yours and see what kind of exits they have given their investors. And do talk about it, because that's what the investor's looking for. Is I put the money and I get my exit and I get out and I make a lot of money. That's their goal. Your goal is to grow your company, make millions of dollars, but your investor's looking to get the money back. And you need to talk about that along with all these wonderful things that are listed here. If nothing you got out of it, remember one thing: credible team. You need to have a credible team capable of execution. That's the key. And a credible team would be divided into these categories: co-founders, executive team, outsourced team. That means lawyers, accountants, etc. Board of advisors, they're experts in the industry who make you look good. Whose brand is utilized. Like a lot of people ask me to be on the board of advisors because almost anybody who's in the startup ecosystem probably knows me. Most investors know me. So when they see me being on the board of advisors, there's a trust that, okay, if Mr. Roy is there, then these guys at least have been vetted to a certain degree. Otherwise, he wouldn't give his name, right? So it's important that you have experts in your domain who join your board of advisors, because even if you're young or you're inexperienced, they make up for it by showcasing, hey, we trust this guy, we're given a name. And that's a very important aspect of your brand. Of course, interns are great. They do a lot of grunt work, almost for dirt cheap or free sometimes. Investors and strategic partners, a lot of these advisors become your investors and strategic partners, or they have friends who are very powerful who can become investors or strategic partners. So board of advisors is a very important thing that you should keep in mind. That's generally overlooked. How do you find them? If you find them on LinkedIn, AngelList, F6S, your college alumni group, etc. Don't ignore social media. You can find a lot of good people. Uber was built. Co-founders of Uber met on Twitter. So this happens, and I have personally been extremely benefited by LinkedIn and YouTube, and I continue to meet a lot of people through that. I'm sure Atal Incubation Center here, they know me from my social media profiles. That's how everybody knows me. So do have a personal brand as a CEO or a founder of your company, where people get to know what you're doing, the wonderful things that you're doing. So they connect with you, and that way you get access to quality people who can help you potentially open doors. Different kind of pitches. Don't try to, if somebody's asking you for a networking event and you have to give an elevator pitch, give an elevator pitch. Don't have a 20-minute pitch and you just give the first slide of the 20-minute pitch. That's not elevator pitch. Elevator pitch means it's really a 30 seconds to 1 minute synopsis of the highlights of your business, where you tease the investor so they ask you more questions. If it's a 5-minute pitch, it's not the 20 minutes pitch slides. You cut off a few slides and you make a 5-minute pitch. It is, again, taking the highlights and a little bit more and a little bit more. So they ask you more questions and get you more. So these are very important aspects of pitching, where people make a lot of mistakes. They don't care about the time. They just go on. And you know what? Time is money. For people who have money, they know how much their time is worth, and they don't want you to waste their time blabbering around talking about things. Focus on what's important. Make an emotional connect. Show the passion that you have. Show that you're determined. And you have to be really determined to showcase that. You can't fake it. I mean, you can fake it, but you'll be caught, right? Nobody is stupid. So I hope this has helped you guys. I have a few more slides left. Let me quickly go through this. This is what an investor pitch deck looks like. Don't make it too damn long. Don't make it too filmy, or don't make it too complicated. Have a balance of facts and figures along with storytelling. That way it is interesting, it is focused, and you're not doing everything for everyone. You're doing something for someone. You're a specialist, you're focused, you have a vision, and you're here with the right assumptions to grow your company. Especially with go-to-market strategy, most people say, oh, I'm going to do digital marketing. Hello, there's a million people doing digital marketing. And if you really were to focus only on digital marketing to grow your business, you would be bankrupt before even you start, because it can be very expensive. So you need to have growth hacks. You need to have strategic partnerships. You need to have ways and means that others are not thinking about, ways of marketing, getting to the market such that it's zero cost. Of course, that can be added on top by digital marketing, but just don't say my go-to-market strategy is Facebook and Instagram ads. No, that's not how it works. You really need to understand how to acquire your first 10 customers and how to acquire your first 100 customers. How are you going to get referrals? How are you going to get your strategic partnership to give you? How are you going to get a large enough pool of people from a group of people, other people's network, et cetera, et cetera. You need to really think through how are you going to do customer acquisition. A lot of engineers think only about the product and forget about the marketing and the customer acquisition, which is the first thing you should think about before even building the product, right? So it's for an investor, that's a very important aspect, because without customers, you're dead. You can have the best product, but if you're not the team who can acquire customers, you're not worth investing in. You're as good as, you're almost guaranteed to fail, right? Know your competition. Is very embarrassing when your investor knows about your competition and you don't. You're like, we're the only one in this market. Nobody has done this before. And then investors going to be like, okay, here's 15 other names that are doing the same thing that you're doing and doing it better, and they're heavily funded. And you're like, oh, really? I didn't know that. So please don't be embarrassed. Don't create that embarrassing situation. Do your research, find out who else is there in the market. And even if you're very, very unique, find out the customers you're going after. Where are those customers getting their current services from? Like Airbnb, literally very, very unique company, right? Very unique concept. But they used Craigslist and Couchsurfing.com and all of these other companies to showcase, hey, this is where people are going right now, because there is nothing like Airbnb that exists. But my customers are hiding in these places, and I'm going to grab those people from there to Airbnb, right? So you need to really showcase that you know your competitors and you understand, and you can be better than them, right? Once you go through the pitch deck and pitching, and they're really interested, investors going to ask you for a business plan, which is more detailed. And that's where you give all kinds of financial summaries and all kinds of things. I am done, and I'll open up for Q&A.
Thanks a lot, Avelo. That was really insightful. And I'm sure the participants have gained a lot of insight into the investor's mindset through your talk. So I would request the participants to, unmute themselves and ask questions, or put them in the chat section below so that Avelo can answer them.
Okay, Sudarshan is saying.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Ranga Reddy. Hello, Ji. Namaskar.
Good afternoon. Yeah, please tell me.
This is Ranga Reddy, Ranga from retired Indian Air Force from Chittoor district, Andhra Pradesh. And just can I ask? Can you send any prepared any model PPT so that it is easy for the innovators or entrepreneurs to pitch their product or pitch their idea to the investors. So it will be useful for them.
You
And
can
is
find
I
the
know because
Airbnb pitch deck online
since
on Google. It is one of the best, most
okay.
easy to emulate pitch deck. It's a very commonly actually emulated, so it's very good. You can just get it online. Airbnb pitch deck.
Sir, and apart from that, we would be sharing
Oh,
some sample
is it?
decks with you to go through. So you will have some references as well.
Yeah, please. That is the better side. It is useful for everyone, not only for me, to the person, those who are in a startup and really entrepreneurs, and so they can prepare their presentation easy. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sudarshan is asking, most of the examples are IT promoted digital customer market. What would you recommend for a manufacturing company? Like I said, I also covered that. I said that, if you're a manufacturing business, then you need a very specific set of investors who understand that business very well and understand it needs infrastructure cost, it needs operational cost, and those individuals you have to reach out who will understand you, and they will focus on your past clients, they will focus on your future clients and how they can add value beyond just money, because it would probably be a bigger player in the industry who is doing the same thing you're doing and can open doors for you.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Nupur. As you started off by saying that the product, you have to be very focused when you start up. And so I have started up last year in August, and I started with a 20 rupees product because I am first generation entrepreneur. I had left job and I started to test the market. So the product review is good, but the problem is how to increase the revenue. So you said that you have to be very focused and go. You don't have to expand very fast. So I was thinking if I get into a high value product or something, I can get into a higher revenue level. But it contradicts that being focused. So how to deal with that? I'm in a food industry, millet based snacks. Yeah.
Okay, that helps. So you can have multiple product line, but stay with millet. Don't try to be millet plus quinoa plus this and that. So when I say focus, I mean stay in one genre, right? At the beginning. Later on, as you figure out the business model, you can always expand to 100 million categories if you want. But initially, since you have limited resources, be the king of, be the queen of millet-based snacks, right? So, and also I mentioned, if you remember, multiple streams of revenue. So that is also a very important aspect you should keep in mind. So it's not just one product, but multiple sources of revenue, and not just people buying it for one time, but you can also go into subscription model where you can tie up with schools and government organizations or hospitals where they take monthly from you a certain amount of millet-based food products. So multiple revenue channels with multiple kinds of revenue. So recurring revenue or one-time revenue or annual revenue, etc. Does it make sense?
Thank you so much. Yeah, it does.
Most welcome. Okay. Somebody's asking me, what are the key words to use in the paraphrasing a USP? USP is unique value proposition, unique selling proposition. What are the key words to use in a paraphrasing? I'm not sure I can answer that question. It depends on your product, right? What your product is, it will have a certain USP, and based on that, the keywords would come. I don't know if I'm misunderstanding you.
Hello, I'm Chidambar Joshi. I have one quick question actually. For investors, when they look at our proposal, and already we have successfully started the startup, and we have a certain history also. And when we go for investment, what model usually they prefer? Like they take the stake in the entire organization, or it is kind of a loan kind of thing where we will repay them back with the interest or dividends or higher whatever it is actually? What is a regular thing? What happens?
The most common thing is equity, taking a stake in your company. In certain cases, it could be a debt equity, where initially it's a debt, and eventually at a certain trigger point. So let's say you don't know your valuation right now, and you don't want to give away your valuation. So you say, okay, I'm going to take 50 lakhs in loan at this percent interest. And you say, okay, when the first investor comes in at 10 crores, at that time, you will convert to equity at the same valuation that future investor comes in. So future investor says, okay, your company is worth 100 crores. And then my 50 lakhs has now become 75 lakhs. So at 10 crores, he's taking a stake, and I'm also taking a stake at the same valuation with 75 lakhs worth of money of valuation I'm going to take. Or I'm going to tell you, give me my money back. I am out. I'm exiting out of this business. Right. So that's the debt equity part. But the most common thing is equity, and taking a stake in the company.
Okay. There is a
Malhar,
question from.
just
Yes,
one
yes.
second. Whoever the organizer is, there's a lot of questions in the chat section, and
Sure,
people
sure.
are
I'll be
also
reading out.
asking. I want you to kind of moderate it so that you
Definitely.
help me with the chat part, so that people who are asking on video are not the only ones getting the answers.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay, thank you.
there is a question from Rabi. She wants to know more about go-to-market strategy.
I need a little bit more than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brief about go-to-market strategy. I mean, how are you going to acquire your customer? If it's a B2B or a B2C, so be more specific in your questions.
Absolutely. Another question here from Sudarshan. So, do investors look up for only prototype development, which goes for sale for entrepreneurs? Will the investor look for
Investors care
innovation?
about only one thing, and
Yeah.
that's growing their money and getting their money back 10 times or 20 times return on investment. That's why somebody invests in a startup, because 90% of startups fail. It's a very high risk investment. The only reason why anybody invests in a startup is because even though it's high risk, the rewards are extremely high. So whether it's a prototype or whatever else, that's not the concern of the investor. The investor's concern is, you do whatever it takes to get me that exit. If that means getting a prototype, getting it out there in the market, getting bigger investors who would buy me out and double my money or give me 10 times return on investment, that's what I care about. So don't get lost in your business. Investor doesn't care about what the nitty-gritties of your business. They're investing to grow their money.
Right, right, right. So, multiple questions here from Shalini and again Rabi. So, they want to know more about B2C go-to-market strategy.
Anyway, Kapil, I'm just going to go through the questions myself, because don't give me the questions that are not qualified questions, right? If they're broad, I cannot give an answer like that.
So, a request to all the participants, please be specific to your questions. So, if you're asking anything, just provide more details to it.
Okay. Let me just go through these. Good presentation. What are the key? Okay. So I answered the manufacturing questions. Sudarshan, brief about, okay, Rabi, Pragan, what are the words to use? Thank you for the answer. B2C. Manish is asking, since yesterday we got 2 to 3 VCs getting in touch with us for funding purpose, and we aren't sure should we go for it for learning process. However, we want to raise in mid-August. Manish, if you want to raise in mid-August, know for a fact, you should start talking now, because the whole process takes 6 months to 8 months. They will talk to you, you'll pitch to them, then they'll be, if they like you, they're going to ask for more information, and you're going to take time to actually give them more information, financial projections, all of that takes time. Then you go to shareholders agreement, SHA, that's when what takes long time, because you will say remove this clause, they will say add this clause, and there's going to be back and forth between your lawyers, their lawyers, right? And finally, after signing the SHA, after a month or so, or maybe 2 months after that, the check will come to your bank. So if you're thinking you want money in August, better start talking now.
So yesterday we just got a Your Story feature, and we were surprised to know many VCs were interested. Actually, more than 3 to 4 actually. But one thing, like as you said, sir, I was a little doubtful whether I'm not sure, I'm not prepared. Mid-August is the time, and when you
start the conversation, start the friendship. People invest when they trust you, and the trust develops after many conversations, right? So it's not like if you start talking today in March you'll get the funding. No, It takes time. So have the conversation, send them monthly reports that this month we have grown this much since last month, right? These are the new things that have happened, new hire or whatever. Every month, give these people who are showing interest in you, Manish, something new to look forward to. That way they show, they see that you're growing. And they talk to other VCs also. That, oh, these guys, they're very consistent. By the first week of every month, they send a report and they seem to be growing. Let's look at them seriously, right? So don't just reject them. Talk to them and update them and bring them along with you. Maybe invite them to the board of advisors if they're good enough.
Thanks a lot, sir. This was much
Sure.
required.
Okay, go ahead. Other questions?
So, do you agree that the initial customer acquisition costs are usually higher?
It depends on your intelligence. It doesn't have to be. If you're smart enough in selling and figuring out growth hacks, you can be spending zero on customer acquisition cost. I know so many companies that have gone from 0 to million with $0 in marketing, purely based on optimization and organic growth and connections and relationships, strategic partnerships. Amit Gupta has a question, it seems.
So I have two questions. First, in the elevator pitch, what area shall we focus on? And likewise, in a 5-minute deck, because again, it's a very short time. So which area shall we stress on in the 5-minute presentation?
Whatever area you can brag about, Amit. So if you have amazing IITians or people ex-Microsoft, ex-Zomato or whatever, really good people, talk about the team. We have a team of blah who have done this before and we are solving this problem. So definitely talk about the problem, talk about how you're solving it, and talk about who is solving it, right? So these are three things that are very important. If you have a patent or if you have won awards or been featured, don't talk about that. So it's basically highlight, and you're done with your elevator pitch. In your 5-minute presentation, do cover the problem, the solution, the competitive landscape, your competitive advantage. What have you done? What's your current status? We have already 10,000 downloads, or we have already $1 million in revenue, or whatever it is, right? We've already raised a seed fund, something. So what's your current status? What have you done without the investors' help? And what can you do? And what you're looking forward to? How much you're raising? Ask. So in the 5-minute pitch, definitely make sure you ask, unless you ask, you don't get, right? How much you're looking to raise? Don't give the valuation away, because that's a trick question. Different investors, different valuation. Always remember that. Valuation is not a formula. Valuation is dependent on what somebody perceives your value to be. So for X investor, your valuation could be $1 million. For Y investor, it could be $50 million, right? So don't give away the valuation. Give away only the amount that you tried to raise and what you would accomplish with that amount in the next 12 months or 18 months.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So,
hello, Mr. Roy.
Hi, Malhar.
Hello.
No, I think Arnab is.
Yeah.
Oh, Arnab. Okay.
Hi, Mr. Roy. I'm Arnab Guha from Impeccable Innovations, Bangalore.
We met once, right?
Yeah. I attended one of your course in Bangalore.
Right.
Earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a small questions. We are into this Spotify gluten-free flour manufacturing, and it is giving a very good health benefit to the current set of users. And we are into this business last 1.5 years, and we have now modified our things into D2C online marketing channels rather than offline things, because it is working like a medicine to the existing
What is your
set
question?
of people, but we don't have a clinical. My question is how to improve our D2C marketing.
So where are you selling? On Amazon?
Of healthy products. No, currently from our own website.
That's a bad idea, because so best is to sell through existing where people are already there. So Big Basket, Amazon, Amazon Fresh, Amazon Pantry, etc., where people are already there. In your website, you probably don't have things optimized. I can just look at your logo and tell you you don't have the right marketing people to help you. So don't focus on something that is not your strength.
Okay.
Right. So your website is not the place. I mean, you can keep the website, but focus on where people actually are buying this. And I can tell you from many FMCG companies that are doing extremely well during this lockdown pandemic and all that. People are buying. I personally buy anything online, from gur to flour to rice. Everything I'm buying from Amazon Pantry or Amazon Fresh. So definitely go on these platforms.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. And don't mind actually spending money on advertising on Amazon, because it really works if you can do it right.
Oh, okay. Sure. Thank you.
Sure.
So, Avelo, I would like to thank you on behalf of Arthayan and all the Atal Incubation Centers who have participated in this event. And the participants have definitely gained a lot from this 1 hour talk of yours. So what I will probably do is I will have the questions sent over to us via email, and I'll curate them and send it over to you. And maybe if, in the coming week or so, if you're free and if you can get back to them, that would be great.
I won't. I'll just tell you right now, I won't be able to do that. I'm extremely busy. What I can do is, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram, one by one, I can answer these questions. But going through an email, it'll get buried. I just know myself, So if people want to connect with me, I'm the only person in the world with the name Avelo Roy. Just search me. You will find me on social media. If you have a quick question, just send a quick 1 or 2 line question. I will do my best to respond back within 48 hours.
Sure. So I would anyway request the participants to send us the questions, and we will try to get it solved to the best of our capabilities as well. And once again, thanks, Avelo, for joining us over here. It was really beautiful. Thanks a lot once again.
Thank you so much. All the best, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Malhar.